last tea tasting of the year. We have this Yakushima Black Tea from Japan. Now, Japan makes mostly green teas, so this is apparently a very unusual. I have 95 Celsius, 3 to 4 minutes. I always do 20 seconds. It is from the Camellia sinensis website, which is also the name of the tea plant. And here's what it looks like. We've been trying to smell the dry leaves. It is very much a cut smaller pieces. Here's your color of the liquid. We're using my Japanese cups instead of the other tasting cups. You said wood, maybe the whole forest?
Yes.
Look at the wet leaves. Second steep. We've got candles going. Had to blow out the blue one because it had a fruit scent messing with my tasting experience. It's an extremely nice tea. See, here's my tea pals. They're joining me for tea. That's how excited they are to have tea with Mom. Here are my tasting notes for the Yakushima. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce that. Black tea. This Biologique, whatever, is a French word. I never learned how to speak French, which means organic. And so I tasted this the last day of the year, December 31st, 2021. It's a black tea. It's from this Yakushima, Japan. And here is where that's located. You see the main island of Japan, and it's all the way down here, a little bitty island, and there's what it looks like. And from the website, it says a cultivar, the Yabuki cultivar of the Camellia sinensis plant. And from another website, I got that this island black tea is made using two cultivars, either this one, the Yabuki that we are drinking, or the Utaka Midori. So it would be interesting maybe later on down the road to see if I couldn't find the other cultivar. I do love this Camellia sinensis website because they do give specific information, even who the producer is, the altitude, the cultivar, and even the date of harvest. So this tea was harvested in April, and here I am drinking it in December. That is pretty good and pretty cool. This location is a subtropical climate, and the tea leaves are grown in a thick mist. I got that off of another website. I thought that was super cool because we know that the climates affect the taste of the tea. This location, this island, is protected by UNESCO World Heritage Site, and so it's also a very special island for that purpose. So, processing, I just put dark oxidized. There's what the word French means from the actual website. This tea, it took 5 years of research and tasting for it to finally arrive on their menu, in other words, for sale on their website. And it says it's very unusual. I got that reading on other places online too, that it was quite an unusual tea, and I have to agree with it. It is much different than other black teas, but yet it's very similar. I think that if I was doing a blind taste testing and I would have this tea enough to become familiar with it, I would be able to pick it out from other black teas. So it is definitely unique. They say it's full, round, and loaded with warm aromas. Um, so it is wooded. We did get wooded, and I did get spice. The dry was very light woody and a delicate spice, very enjoyable. And the closest spice I could think of was clove, but it was not really clove. I could not decide what kind of spice and what kind of wood. I was kind of leaning more to pine or some sort of hardwood. And then in the wet, the first time I smelled the wet, I was like, oh, that's the classic malt aroma of black tea. It's just like all the other black teas. However, after the next steeps, I could detect both the classic malt of black tea and the woody and spice all together. So what I got from the dry and what I got from the wet on subsequent steeps, when I smelt it, it all came together. That's so super cool how it did that. I don't know. This is why we really focus on our tea and think about it, and it's relaxing discovering these things. So after a long time of thinking what kind of wood, I decided on the word juniper. That is some sort of evergreen bush. It has a distinct, it's not pine, but it's similar to pine. It has, I think, needles, and that came to mind, and I really liked it to describe this tea, juniper. I think juniper also has some berries on it, which might lend to a bit. I don't know. It is very. You think of a juniper as a evergreen winter um, thing, and it is very nice and comforting to drink this tea in the winter. Anyway, so color scheme there that I made up, and here's the mahogany, and you can see definitely looks mahogany. I almost went with cedar, but it does have that red tint to it. Body I put as medium. I rarely get a high body. When I first started doing these tastings, I had 5 categories, and I narrowed it down to 3: light, medium, and whatever heavy. And a medium and light are the 2 I use most. Astringency. Now, this was completely surprising. For black teas, there's usually a little bit of astringency, so it's in the bright light category, number 2. Some of them, like Assam tea, is so astringent that I can't hardly drink them, and they're really high. Rarely do I get a smooth mouthfeel with no astringency, and that's what I got with this one. It's definitely unique for a black tea, and I loved that. And I also found it forgiving. Now, here comes the kicker. When we first tasted the tea, I had used less leaves, and that kept giving us that perfect cup of tea, And they always say, if you want a stronger tea, you got to use more leaves. The second time I used more leaves, and it wasn't quite as forgiving. But it is very forgiving if you use those lesser amount of leaves. So just remember that. And then taste. It tastes more like the dry aroma of wood and spice than the wet. When I did the first steep of only 20 seconds, just a real quick steep, it was very nice. We really liked it. It was extremely good, and we were pleasantly surprised. We just kept wanting to drink more and more of it. Now, in the second session, when I used more leaves, it was the same and yet different because it was very bold and pungent, and we didn't like it as much. But it still was without astringency and smooth, so the spice really came out as well as the traditional malty came out. But definitely if I would buy this tea again, I would definitely use it. Make sure I have a lesser amount of tea leaves. And I did not measure. I should have measured how many ounces my tea leaves. But this is a sample package, and we used a little less than half for the first tasting, and so a little more than half of the sample package for the second. Finish. I got evaporating and quick, so it just didn't last long in the finish. But there was this little bit of bitterness in the back of the tongue for about 30 seconds, which it really, to have that bitterness without the astringency is unique. And it lasted about 30 seconds, so you could feel it, but then it was quick to disappear. So I liked it. And now the second session with more leaves, the finish really came out. It was very unique to have the bitter finish in the smooth tea. This tea did not give a lot of steeps. So sometimes I love tea that I could sit and steep all day long, and it never seems to quit giving me flavor. This one was a good average amount. It wasn't bad. It was good and average, what you would expect to get from tea. I guess I'm always looking for those ones that I can steep all day, though. It's actually an excellent tea. I gave it 4 hearts. I almost gave it 5. 5 means I'd keep it on hand. I wouldn't keep it on hand, but I would buy it again. I often have trouble with those bolder teas, such as Assam, that I do not like, but this one, I could so drink it anytime. I would almost certainly buy it again. It ranks up there kind of with the Ceylon teas that I never hesitate to buy for black teas.